he's probably smart. Well, we know he's smart. But a word spoken over him changes his whole character. And I think it's what we will see come about by their, if you will, their initial naming, which has its significance. It's not insignificant. There's a purpose for it. And also where they will go to when their father leaves them and speaks over them and leaves them with a character that will define them further, if you will. You know, and I think, now this is, here's my rabbit trail, if you will. One of the thoughts that I've discussed with people that I really kind of like is the idea that in that coming day, when we enter the temple, we will be assigned based on our elements of our character to a tribe, and we will go in that gate and no other gate. And that there will be elements of character that are important that either we will have, will be spoken over us, will be acquired, will be developed. I'm not going to even attempt to go and define why, but I do think it's going to be because their elements of character are important.
Well, that's why there's that 1,000 years before we enter. That's the developmental years.
Okay. You get a little time to work on it, right? Okay, so the melodrama of this clan, this family, Dallas? No, won't go there. Oh, I don't get it, rats. I had this little button with the entertainer, Scott Joplin's The Entertainer on there, and I was going to play that little bit of it. That's right. So I didn't make it, but...
That was bad of you.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
I mean, it's... There you go. Just that's a musical interlude. Okay. Here's the terms. Okay, this is how it's going to work out. This is what's going to bring them together. Laban, obviously, Laban's making the terms. Yaakov, as strong-willed as he seems to be here, he's accepting the terms. Now, you know...
Well, he'd been out in the field with them for 14 years, so
Yeah.
he knew what to look for.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, but again, he had, as we can see, obviously Laban's setting it up so he has nothing.
Right.
That's what Laban thinks, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, well, he is. No, Laban is setting it up because at the beginning of the agreement, he will have basically nothing. You know, now, obviously that's not, and I think very much like, akin to, as Joseph put it later on, you know, it started out, you meant it for ill, but obviously the Lord's here and working it out, and His will be done. You know, so I mean, these are the terms. Laban only gets the solid sheep. You know, and I've heard white, brown, and black. His sons will take care of his flocks, so there won't be opportunity for Jacob to secret away any of his flocks, and there'll be a 3-day separation, which I think there's a lot in that. But so again, to set it up so that, you know, Jacob really won't even have the opportunity, because he obviously, you know, it's amazing sometimes how I'll say evil, and probably not the best word, can only imagine evil things. You know, they have a hard time understanding integrity. So in fact, Laban can only assume that Jacob's gonna try, because he knows he's sticking it to him here. So he can only imagine that Jacob's gonna try something to get something. He's gonna steal from me somehow. So I gotta cover it. I gotta try and cover all the bases I can so this kid ain't gonna get over on me. You know? Jacob doesn't get the purebreds. Doesn't get the, the unique. He's gonna take care of his own flocks. Again, like you said, all things that are, it's no big deal to Jacob. I've been doing this my whole life, And then, you'll pardon the reference, but then he gets into a little genetic engineering. I read a very interesting little commentary that seems to substantiate, or the substantiation they gave to the idea of the shredding, the peeling, the branches and things like that, and laying them in front of where they would, is that sheep are timid, easily scared, and that it affects them genetically. Like unless they're, and it also will, there will, remember we've talked about how they, if things aren't right, they won't lie down and be comfortable. They won't relax, they won't sleep, they're too skittish. They won't be happy. If a lamb is in heat and the circumstances aren't really good, they're probably gonna take care of that, but it's gonna be in a stressful situation. I think the implication was that there's some element genetically that the stress, I don't know if solid colored sheeps are dominant or recessive or whatever. My guess would be that, chances are the mottled would make more sense to be the dominant gene, just because it's, a better, a mix, but that aside, that's the one thing, and it was hard for me at times, especially when I first read some of this stuff. The first time you read through some of this stuff, it's like really confusing. It's like, what? First of all, I didn't know who was doing what to whom. The first time I read this, I thought Jacob was really, man, this guy's a conniver, a deceiver. I mean, because especially from where the implications from where he's come from, oh, yeah, he stole his brother's birthright. Oh, he got over on Esau, got his blessing. Well, we know that actually it was Rebekah who stole the blessing and said, if there's a curse, let it be on me. So just do it. Don't talk back. Get in there.
Yeah, well, God told her too in the beginning that
Right.
the younger was going to be, and she was sort of facilitating.
Right. I mean, so I think Jacob keeps getting put in these spots where he gets very easily labeled or looked at as not a real righteous guy.
So Jacob's trouble started when he
Yeah, exactly right. His trouble started when he was born. And he's got trouble almost his whole life in a way.
He always manages to keep going.
Yeah.
I've just got something to say.
So here's the arrangement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dottie has something.
Oh, thank you.
On the spotted sheep, they're usually 3% of the flock.
Really?
3%.
Oh, see now, that's exactly how God would work.
Right.
They're what?
Laban was really,
Yeah, he was giving him what he knew would be like, hey, okay, you can have 3%. If you're lucky, you're going to get one every 100 sheep, or 3 of them every 100
I
sheep.
think it was a
And
biker.
as far as, him putting it in front of the sheep, I've read stories about human mothers that would look at something calm and peaceful and have a very peaceful child.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something about
right?
you know, what you're looking at. And-
Well, what you sent out
Yeah.
is perfect. What you just sent out is
Yeah.
absolutely talks to talks to that.
What do you say?
He did, right.
Deanna just sent out something that was actually relating to this,
You are what you see.
you are what you see,
Right.
you know, and obviously making references to what you watch, you know, affects you, and it's who you become. But
And to add to this whole thing, that the outside study, that when they stripped the wood, they were exposing the chemical or the fungus that was in it, because they actually put that in the water.
In the water,
and
sure.
They're drinking this, so it was gonna affect.
right,
So there's your another narcotic, it had
Right.
a calming
Well, yeah.
effect.
I mean,
Everybody's drugged.
yes, sir.
You can also see here that Jacob was a good shepherd. He was able to increase his flocks, and he took better care of his flocks.
He did. He understood. Now, if you will, I think if there's any element of this that Jacob really had a hand in, it was when it came to the idea of mating the strong and the weak. Because I think he had a hand in that, in saying, when the weak were in heat, it's like, go over there, go mate with his flock. Oh, strong sheep, okay. You come over here and you mate over here. I think there's at least a possibility that he had a hand in that.
But then we find out, as we read a little further, that it was all of God's doing
Oh, of
anyways.
course, yeah.
You know.
Right?
Laban didn't lay out these terms, that you're gonna get my spotted sheep. Jacob said, I want your spotted sheep.
That's true.
You
That's
gotta think
true.
about it from the right perspective there. Jacob said, I'll take them, separate them out, and then
Now,
you
do
have
you-
a big candidate there.
Laban was an older gentleman, and he knew how he thought. He scammed him so many years.
Well, and I think it probably also testifies a little bit to the fact that Jacob wasn't an idiot.
No, not at all.
Because he was like going, okay, here's something he'll go for.
Yeah, because
Here's something he'll go for. He can, he'll let me have,
He'll
3%.
finally leave.
And he was leaving, and he was wanting the strong sheep. He didn't care what they looked like.
right?
He wanted to make sure they made the journey.